In this video, I'll show you a little bit about visualization and setting things up in ModelSpace and in PaperSpace. Typically, when you come into Civil 3D, you'll start out in ModelSpace. Typically, that's when the background is black. You can change that to white, but typically the default setting is when it looks like it's black here. Inside of this space, just a reminder that you can zoom in and out by scrolling on your scroll wheel or typing in zoom and setting different things here. Do notice that on the sidebar there is kind of the ability to pan, which means I can come and take this and move it around just north, south, east, west in here. And then also here is the zoom extents. And so there's different zoom options in here. That's a very common one. As long as all your data is in a localized area, when you zoom to extents, it'll zoom directly to what that is. If you're having trouble zooming to that, you always, if you zoom and there's nothing showing, one of the things you can do is go to just a specific set of files. You can zoom to it this way. So I would zoom just to the ground shots. So if you had just your control points in there or just your building shots, you can basically zoom just to that set of shots right there. Now, once you work through things on your model space and want to go ahead and get into PaperSpace, there are the tabs down here showing the different pages that we will produce in the labs in surveying here. Now, once you come into here, oftentimes you'll notice that nothing shows up in here. And this is what is considered PaperSpace. If you see it just like this, the default, you're in PaperSpace. This is what would get printed to the page, what the paper is seeing. Now notice you can go ahead and double click into the viewport window. So when I double click there, you'll notice that the boundary gets bold. If you see a bold boundary, that essentially means that now I'm viewing into model space. And once you do that, you can do a couple different things in here. I can just, now that I'm in model space, I can do the same thing that I was doing previously with, I can again hit zoom, and that'll give me options of how I want to zoom in there, and I would just put all in there. So zoom all, and you're going to see that all of your stuff comes up here. Now often it gets kind of clumped up on the side here and it doesn't quite look like what you're seeing in model space, and that's just because the image isn't zoomed in enough there. Sometimes there are points. If you've reversed your control points, the northing and easting on that, there's two different sets of data and you almost can't even see any of the text or anything that way. And so what you have to do is go in and change your control points, northing and easting, to make sure that they match what the existing data is. Now you will notice here that I can come in and just, again, I'm just using my scroll wheel, and if you scroll enough, you're going to find that sure enough, whoops, I went too far. If I scroll in right on the center there, and scroll in enough, again, you'll see that we will come to our surface. As this is doing this, you'll notice that as we get into there, sometimes it will regenerate and sometimes it will not. So when I say regenerate, basically the icons or the text is too large, and so when you zoom in, it will keep that same thing unless you there's a certain timed out setting to where it regenerates, or you can just type in regen. And so watch this as I type in regen. It will then regenerate that text to be appropriate for the size of that window, and you can see that we're coming in on what is appropriate scale for Thompson flats. And you may want to zoom a little further in on your building depending on what it is you're looking at. Again, you can kind of zoom to your preferred location. Again, hit regen, and it's done that way. So you can see here all the dots are shown and whatnot. Now again, to get out of this model space, you can jump back out and just double click on the outside of that, and you'll see that that border goes away. And now if I scroll, the scrolling actually happens for the paper. So again, if you want to go back in, you can go back in, double click inside of that boundary and zoom in there, and double click outside of it and zoom on the paper that way. If you're having trouble and you get too zoomed in on the basically inside the model space and can't see the paper space anymore, to click outside of it, one of the things you can just type in here is, again, if I'm inside that model space there, and then I just type in PSpace, that will take me out of that and put me back into PaperSpace that way. So again, those are some different visualization options in order to get you to zoom directly to what you're interested in.